Welcome to a general overview of Forecisely on-demand software as a service, which is a totally web-based application. Forecisely is an easy-to-use yet very affordable supply chain planning tool that's geared towards small to medium-sized enterprises, including brick-and-mortar retail, e-commerce, distributors, and manufacturers. We offer at our website, which is forecisely.net, a free limited trial edition so that you can check it out for yourself and then upgrade to our unlimited version later. If you want more information after viewing this video, or you want to license the limited trial or full version, go to forecisely.net. .com also works, and check it out. What you see right now is our application's home screen. To the left is a menu, which really we refer to those as modules. At the upper right, you'll see there's a help function, which is sensitive to where you are in each module, which we find helpful. I'll now walk you through each module on the left here on the home screen menu, so you get a feel for the flow and functionality of Forecisely. I might not be covering everything, but I think you'll get the gist of it. So the first screen here is our settings screen, and within this, you have an individual screen for each SKU. That is an item at a stock keeping location. So you can change this as you will, and it's one SKU. There'll be histories and forecasts for each SKU. There'll be a rolling 24 periods of both history and forecast for each SKU. So as a result, the user occasionally, typically monthly, but it's up to the user when they want to enter new data or import new data, is to change the forecast start date. In other words, you ideally would want today to be the first period of the forecast. There's 24 periods, as I said, rolling history and forecast. And on the right here, the periods, you can have it in time planning buckets of days, weeks, or months. I'll leave it in days. Any changes to this or other modules, you'll see a save button. You should always click that when you're, every once in a while, but certainly before you click return and exit. You can import data such as sales history and other data, or enter it manually if you'd like. But I'll really get into that more later. So within settings, you can, enter in these white boxes. Pretty much it's these white boxes or drop downs that you can change things. And so as you can see here, there's a number of methods that we use, as well as a best method forecast. So there's the naive method, which you don't see here, and that just says whatever I sold last period, I'm going to sell each period going forward. There's linear regression, which you also don't see here, which is basically it draws a scatter chart of history and draws a best fit line projected forward, going up, down, or flat. And to that, you can apply a seasonality index, which you'd have to complete here. 100% is average, or 100 is average. 125 is 25 above, percent above. 75 would be 25% below the average. An average, moving average, just takes the number of periods you select, 3 periods here, and you just have to give them weights, and they have to add up to 1.0 or 100%. Then the system, you can also, I should say, besides seasonality, you can add a growth factor up or down to whatever forecast the system comes up with as a percent down here, a plus or minus percent. Then finally, the system picks from all these different methods I've just talked about, what we call a best method forecast using AI to select the best, most accurate method. So you can override it, as you'll see later. And as I said, before exiting the screen, you should always click save, which I'll just do, and return, which takes me back here. Next is the demand history. This is a pretty simple screen. Again, we'll get into the importing and exporting, but basically the importer enter period historical data by SKU. Next, we'll go to the forecast. With the forecast, you generate, view, and adjust forecasts, right? Not surprising. Note that both forecasts and then order projections, which we can go to in 2 ways here, can be updated in batch, which I'll show you later, as opposed to one screen at a time. Note on this screen, these are your forecasts going forward in periods. There's a calculated and adjusted. for the user to make modifications. So if I decide I want to make this in the second period 5, I just change it to 5. And if I check use calculated, it's only going to use the calculated statistical forecast best method. If I don't check that, it's going to use the adjusted. You can also check here if you want to use a growth factor, and it automatically does that, or apply seasonality, it automatically does that. Use calculated, as I said, it's just going to use the calculated as opposed to an adjusted one. And it tells you which method it picked here, which is the moving average. So I'll save that, and I could go to order projection, but I'll return to the other. So the next screen we'll go to is order projections. And after I'm satisfied with my forecast, I think they're in the best shape that they could be. And that can be a time-consuming process, although systems like this can make it much more productive, as you can have hundreds, if not thousands, of SKUs. So after we're satisfied with forecast, we come here. All these white boxes here and in other places, you can make adjustments to them, and you do have to check either safety time, the number of periods of safety time ahead that I want to use, or one of these confidence safety stock, which is a scientific safety stock that's been calculated. There's 3 confidence levels, so I'll just pick 90%. And so once I do that, and I can also enter schedule receipts, which are existing purchase orders or production work orders. And I can click on there, and I could enter something as a schedule receipt, or I could import as well. And then I would recalculate, and that would adjust everything. So the order projection screen down below here, this is kind of like the information that you really want ultimately, right? What should I produce or purchase? Kind of a make or buy decision. What should I make or purchase? And so we use what's the format is and functionality is called Master Production Scheduling, or MPS. And we use that to plan future production or purchasing replenishment projections, known as planned receipts and planned orders, which you see at the bottom here. A planned receipt is, I'll change this back to 0. A planned receipt, they're off, is the only difference is the receipt is when I need it, and then I offset the lead time to create the planned order. But this is really what you want. Typically, you're going to give your planned orders to your manufacturing site or to your vendor. Okay. And basically, the way MPS works is it nets the current on-hand inventory less the forecast in that period plus scheduled receipts in that period to create a projected ending inventory in each period. And then it calculates planned receipts, which are offset by lead time, to create the identical planned order based on what you've selected as safety time or safety stock. So safety time, it says I always want to end with roughly 7.05 or more. I might have order minimums and multiples. Safety time says I want to keep, in this case, 1 period. That means at the end of each period, I want to make sure I'm covered with my next period's forecast. And so it'll create planned orders and planned receipts based on that. Okay. So the next 2 modules that I'm going to discuss, they're relatively briefly. Stores and locations. Again, you can import this, which I'll show you at the end here, but you can create locations and give them descriptions. So it could be done manually or it could be imported. With items, same thing. You can import items with them. There's some parameters there, but here I can add an item and then I would edit it. And there's various parameters, if you will, lead time, order minimums, multiples, etc. And then finally, we have the batch processes. And so this is basically to help us perform a number of actual batch processes, right? Not just one item, but in bulk, right? And so the first 3 selections you'll see here are ways to import. So there's files that you need to populate. So if you went to any one of these 3, you'd click here, and it'll say get template, and it'll download an Excel template. Okay, so there are three files that you want to populate. Now they can be populated direct, in a spreadsheet that you'll download and then you'll import, or you could populate those spreadsheets from an accounting or ERP system. That's up to you, depending on your capabilities. So, but basically, there's a spreadsheet for each one of these that are downloaded, populated somehow, and then imported. And then you just find it and go through the process of importing it. And then, lo and behold, you'd have that data in your system. You'd want to check if it's in, let's say you just rolled over to the next day, week, or month. You'd want to change the first forecast period to the latest, the current date. Okay. After that on the menu, there's two export buttons, which they'll export data such as sales forecast, planned orders, etc., to a spreadsheet, and which you can do what you'd like with that, review it in the spreadsheet, import it to another system. And then the next two functions or selections are to basically global. Let's say you've imported all new data and you've got hundreds or thousands of items. You can then click on batch forecast, and it'll basically update with the current parameters and settings. So you want to make sure all your settings are current. It'll generate new forecasts, which you could then review. And then you can click on batch order projections, and it'll update based on the current inventory forecast, et cetera, that have been imported, update your batch order production or purchasing requirements in that module. And then we have return and help. Help, as I said, shows you it's sensitive to where you are. Return just takes me back to the previous menu, the home menu. So that's all we had for today. Hopefully you've gotten a lot out of this. If you have questions, feel free to email us at our website, or just sign up for the limited demo, and then when you're satisfied with that, which I'm sure you will be, then you can start with the unlimited system, which is very, very reasonably priced. So we look forward to hearing from everyone. Thank you.